Hello and good day, Welcome to the Welcome to the Super Good Camping Podcast. My name is Pamela,
I'm Tim.
and we are from supergoodcamping.com. We are here because we're on a mission to inspire other families to enjoy camping adventures such as we have with our kids. Today's guest designs some of the most sought-after packs in the canoeing community. Custom fitted and extremely well made, they ease the pain of portaging. Can you imagine? Please welcome Bill Ostrom of Ostrom Outdoors. Hey, welcome.
Hello, Tim and Pamela. Thanks for having me
Hi.
on. This is
Oh,
great.
thanks for coming.
Absolutely, man. I I see so many people talk about your packs. Dennis Rogers is a massive fan. Kevin Callan, all the big guns out there. Um, I give me a little. Thanks for being with us on the show. I have to get that out of the way. But I'm so interested in how did you get into packs? What is the
Yeah.
history of designing packs?
Well, it's funny. Because I was coming here, I kind of thought, when did I make my first pack? And I made it actually when I was 13 years old, an
Oh my
Alaskan
goodness.
pack frame, a wooden frame with canvas wrapped around it. And my mom taught me to sew, and my dad taught me to put grommets in, and that was actually my first pack. But I went, Anne and I, my wife Anne and I went through outdoor recreation at Lakehead University. And that I always was making gear. I ran my own canoeing business and made paddles and fixed up the canoes because it was a ragtag fleet, and made my first canoe packs actually for the outdoor rec program. When I graduated, they hired me and I spent 5 years there as an equipment technologist. And I never had enough money to buy new gear, or at least not enough money. But I always had leftover money that was being returned, and I changed that into buying sewing machines and buying fabric and buckles and stuff, and incorporating students into some of learning how to sew and learning how to design equipment. And that's where we got our origins, and that was probably 1983 to 87, 88. And we started the business in 1987 officially. And that's been my full-time job my entire life after leaving Lakehead University. And we still do it. Yeah. So that's where we started with canoe packs, a canvas canoe pack, and then evolved into a full line of canoe packs. Eventually, we had 35 products, including hiking packs, day packs, duffel bags, briefcases, all that kind of thing. So, yeah,
Very cool. And so the first thing that you at 13, you built a pack with what do you call it? The inside supports, right? Instead of being a frame on the
so,
out
so
exterior.
well, was actually an external. So you're
Oh, okay,
talking
sorry.
internal frame with the interior, and this was, if you can picture, uh, two pieces of wood with two cross pieces wrapped in canvas, so you had air against your back. And then they didn't give you a design for the bag, and my mom helped me design grommets down the side that we could eventually attach a bag. But I made it to carry paddles, to carry little barrels that we had before the big blue barrels, and all kinds of awkward gear. We had a little electric motor that we sometimes took into lakes, and fishing rods and gear, awkward gear that you couldn't generally put into a traditional canoe pack. Yeah, and surprisingly enough, we were in Jasper a month ago, and walk into this museum, and there's a pack frame, probably a lot better made than what I made as a 13-year-old and learning to sew. But it brought back a lot of memories on that I did. Hey, make a first pack when I was really young and learned to sew. So yeah.
And were you involved in the outdoors from a young age?
Very much so. My dad was instrumental in getting me into canoeing, and in the young days, when I think I started canoeing when I was 6, and for me it was all about fishing when I was young. And my dad was not a fisherman. He put up with me fishing because he wanted company and he wanted to introduce me to the outdoors. And my dad's fishing rod was a stick with this old green line wrapped around it, and just thrown out with a lure on, and he didn't really care whether he caught a fish. Surprisingly, he outfished me until the day he died with that fishing rod and line. He'd always catch the big ones, or I'd catch all the tiny ones. But then I grew to love a lot other things about canoeing, and fishing is way down on the list now when I go on a canoe trip. But it's there. If we are in waters where there's some rapids or something, I'm certainly going to fish. But 90%, if tripping with my dad, I would have been fishing probably 70% of the time we're on the water. Well, now it might be less than two. Just to get a fresh fish meal is still special, but not an avid fisherman like say Kevin Callan. I've done two trips with Kevin, and it's almost a competition to see who can catch the most fish, the biggest fish, and that in a good way with Kevin, and a fun guy to trip with. That's for sure.
Yeah, absolutely. It looks like. We'll go back to packs in a bit. So if fishing has dropped, what are your higher, what are the better things that you're interested in?
Yeah. Well, I'm 64 years old, so the biggest thing is if we don't see people on a canoe trip, it's been a great canoe trip.
Yeah,
Whether it rained or didn't, the less people we see, the better. And we still seek out remote areas or places that are less traveled. Um, and that gets harder because you a lot of our tripping early years we were cutting portage trails or going into area where the trails kind of were there and stuff like that. And we did a lot of whitewater too, both tandem and both of us paddled solo whitewater, and we had friends that we would do a 2 week canoe trip in solo whitewater canoes on rivers locally here, and Pakasaw, the White, all kinds of rivers that we did trips in. Probably one of my favorite was um, the Mooseland River and the Gull River, which went in was really difficult to get into, but a place called Devil's Crater, and it's a geographical spot on the map where there's a cirque of cliffs around a tiny, tiny lake, and the cliffs are 200-foot tall, and it's a protected area, conservation area, and you can't camp in it. So it's a long day and really hard work to get into, 12-hour day to get in and out of, and but spectacular. So places, the value of just being away from people and getting into nice places has escalated tremendously as I've gotten older, and less people. Yeah,
yeah,
that's huge.
I hear you on that one for sure. Again, as a side question, do you own a bunch of canoes? Do you rent your canoes? How does that play out, especially if you're doing whitewater?
He's trying to
Yeah.
justify the number of
Well,
canoes
we're
that we have.
I used to own 10 canoes. I now own three. And I say Anne and I own two of the three. One is actually my canoe. Um, we downsized. We sold our house 5 years ago and bought a van and outfitted it for camping. And we travel, looking at for house sits and traveling in the van in the off season when we're not running Ostrom Outdoors. And we had to downsize everything, including my canoe fleet. But an interesting, I'll tell you, Anne put the limit at 10. She said, no more canoes. We don't have any more space.
See,
And I got around that the last Christmas and bought her a canoe. She didn't say I couldn't buy a canoe for her. So I
Yeah,
actually we had 11 canoes, and we sold them all and gave a few to friends, or we had two cedar strip canoes, a Peterborough and a Chestnut, that we selected who we would sell it to for a nominal fee, and they are custodians. Oh, they own them, but they've given us permission to paddle them if we're coming through the area. So, yeah, so we only have three canoes. We have a pack canoe, pack boat that folds up into a canoe pack size. I have a solo canoe, clipper canoe, 14-foot prospector that I use a lot in the summertime. Just get up, and as I said, we have a van. My tying on the canoe days are over with this little canoe because it fits right inside my van. Open the back door, slide it in, and hop in the front and drive. And then we have a 17-foot Prospector Souris River canoe that we really like. So
sweet.
yeah,
I share we have a 17-foot Surrey River as well,
yeah,
and a 14, 14 or 15-foot Swift Keewaydin with the
yeah,
really rounded tumble home.
yeah.
It's interesting, but I only have two, so just saying, 10 come with me. Very nice, very nice. Okay, so what was the number you said? 35 for the products for the product line. You
Uh,
had 35.
Yeah, at one time we had 35, probably more, but 35 core products, and now we have basically five, and more canoeing products, and that will change a little bit in the next year. We're bringing out seven new products, but not shifting too much from the core value. A lot of accessories and one smaller pack. So yeah.
Okay, so I've seen very very cool, very certainly to discussions with other canoeing enthusiasts and just looking at them like very durable products. You know, you could beat the crap out of them. They're going to go for miles and miles and miles. Like they're buy it now. It's going to be 20 years down the road. You're still going to have the same pack. That's kind of my
Well,
take on your
yeah,
products.
thanks. And honestly, that's what I designed for. I do some things that no manufacturers don't do that make my packs tougher. We sew them four times. Everyone sews them two or three times. We have a piece of material down the back where all the shoulder straps and all the heavy stuff is that no one else puts down the back, and a lot of other little things. So it makes our packs heavier. But I'm really proud when I don't see one of my packs in a garbage dump. And I really get excited when camps come back and say, "Yeah, we got 20 years of your packs. We got like 300 of your packs." Uh, or individual customers just saying, "I've had it 20 years. I'm giving it to my son because I can no longer canoe." I commiserate with the gut person, but at the same time, I'm proud of that. So our gear is tough. It's a little bit heavier, but on the other side of the coin, I believe you should be comfortable when you're carrying a pack. Just like if you're wearing a pair of hiking boots, they should fit. And our canoe packs, we give choices. You can buy the basic, you can move up to larger volume, but the comfort level, all our packs are custom made or custom fit to a certain degree, whether it be torso length, shoulder straps, and hip belts. So that's important to Ann and I, that we we're not putting out just a box with shoulder straps on it. We're putting out a pack that people can feel comfortable with, and potentially hand it down to their sons or daughters or friends that are different sizes. In some cases, depending on how close they fit the original owners. So, yeah.
Well, yeah, if I were to have a custom fit pack, it would fit neither of my kids because they start at 3 inches taller than me and go
Yeah.
up from there.
But as an example, a lot of that's going to be torso. If they happen to be similar shoulder sizes and stuff, it's just moving the torso adjustment up or down. And you can fit a tall person, and in that same pack, if they're relatively close in hip belt size and shoulder strap size, you can fit a person who's 5'4" in the same pack.
Wow.
So, but again, some things have to be close, right? If I'm an extra large shoulder strap, and if you are a medium, there's going to be some give and take there. It's not going to fit as well on you as it might on me, or vice versa.
I won't be able to
But
sit you
torso
in.
wise, you could be 6'6" and I could be 5'4", and if we had uh, some other similar measurements, the pack can still fit, and I like that. I like
Very cool.
having flexibility in the gear.
Yeah, well, I mean, I like not going into a store and going, here are your options. No, okay, but I'm different from, so I would like it to if I'm going to wear the thing for 20 years, I would like it to be comfortable for 20 years, as opposed to it's always that one spot that doesn't quite work for me or whatever.
Yeah, and a lot of people think, well, that's great. It'll fit small people, and it'll fit tall people, or bigger people. But really, it should be for everybody. If you can get a pack that fits you better, you're going to be more comfortable in the outdoors. You're going to be more comfortable carrying the weight, and you're not going to be afraid to do a longer portage or several portages to get away from the crowds, to get into a nicer area and such. So It's a core value, I guess. It might be the way to put it.
I like it. So I know in the old days you used to manufacture them in house.
Yeah.
Uh, the world the way it is, that's a tough thing to do anymore.
Yeah, it is.
What do you do now?
Probably the toughest day in Anne and my life was when we decided not to produce them in. We call it Honolulu. We were, 45 minutes outside of Thunder Bay, where we lived. We had 130 acres, and we had all our employees were from the area, and we shut down the shop for manufacturing in Canada, and that was really tough. And the reasons for it were that we were a very small company. We only had 8 employees, and the cost of everything. An example would be the cost of gas. Well, the same. It's a petroleum product, so everything in my line, nylon, fabric, buckles, webbing, are all petroleum products, and the cost of those products went through the roof. In one year, the cost of my fabric went up 80%, and it just meant that as a small company, you couldn't absorb those costs without passing it on to the customers. And my product was already expensive because it was custom made. And it just, so we did shut down in 2013, the manufacturing end of it, but Ostrom Outdoors continued to design equipment. It was just for other people, other businesses, and for myself and for Anne and for a few select friends and that kind of thing. Yeah. So I kept busy doing design projects where I would work with a person uh, that had an idea they wanted to get to market, and I would do all the prototyping and consult with them on what they were looking for, and we'd eventually get a product that was ready to bring to market, and then we'd introduce them to different manufacturers, whether it be in the United States, whether it be in Canada or offshore in Asia, and I still do that. I love designing. I sitting behind a sewing machine day in day out, sewing 100 of these, or 200 of these. I don't enjoy, but I enjoy making that first 4 or 5 to get the bugs out of and get it going, kind of thing. So yeah, so Ostrom Outdoors didn't shut down, but it shut down the production, and that was tough. A lot of good people I had to say goodbye to as well. We got over close to 3,000 emails from people over that issue, saying, "Hey, thank you. Really sorry you're gone," and that even that made us feel good but bad at the same time, right? So, yeah.
Yeah, I can see the mixed feeling on that. Circling back though, because there was an interesting thing I read, that the whole designing thing. I don't know the full story, but I pretty sure I saw something about somebody who is mobility challenged, and you were making a
Oh,
bag for them, but it was a front carry bag as opposed to a rear carry bag. Yes.
Yeah, I've worked with persons with disability over the years a lot, and it's always been fun. The person you're talking about is Louise Surtis, and the company name was uh, pack bags. And Louise had MS and unfortunately has passed away from the disease. And she was in a wheelchair. And she was a designer. She knew what she wanted, but she couldn't find it out there. And um, she knew how to make things, but she couldn't make them herself. So her and her husband Spiro approached us to work with her to bring a bag, and the idea was that all the bags in the market were on the wheels or behind them, and she wanted a bag that was on her lap or on the front of her legs. So she wanted to go grocery shopping and be able to put everything in the front big bag on her legs, and the small bag like kind of like a fanny pack per se on her lap, that she could access her communications and her keys and everything else. And she got it to market, and it did fairly well. And then unfortunately, Louise didn't do well and passed on. So it was a sad story. She was a good friend. Yeah, and a lot of times you don't always get to be friends with the people you work with, but she was a special person, yeah, and she left a special product as well. So
Yeah, MS sucks. Just saying.
Yeah,
Yeah, so
yeah,
something that will help other people though. It was awesome that she was able to contribute.
yeah, and I think that's her legacy in many ways. Is that she designed something. When we were talking back and forth before we started working together, she said something to me. She said, nobody will hire me. I'm in a wheelchair. I can work at McDonald's. I can work in some nice places, but I used to design. I used to be a model. I used to design clothes. I used to do things at a different level than where I want to work. Said, so nobody will give me a job, so I'm going to make my own job. And that's what she did, and was very successful in breaking down barriers and bringing a product that was exciting to her, to the marketplace. So yeah.
Yeah, good for her. That's
What a great
And
attitude.
her product name actually was Handy Pack, just to redo that one a little bit. But yeah,
So that
so
was an interesting request. Did you have other people that have had some, like, not the typical kind of requests for backpacks?
yeah. I'll give you two examples. One isn't a customer. Well, is a customer, I guess, and it was one of my favorite projects. But recently, I did a bag with the company name is Bug Eye Original, and Mike Turnbull is the owner, and he cycled to work every day, and then he had to put on a suit and tie on occasion. And he was in the book industry, and there was bags out there that did some of that, but he had some unique ideas, and we designed a pack that turned into a garment bag, but then folded up into a day pack, and you could put your laptop in, everything you needed for cycling, and yet everything you needed for work to look professional. And that was fun, and working with a really motivated person who knew what he wanted is not always the case. A lot of people have an idea, and then I have to fill in the blanks. Well, with Mike, we pivoted two or three different times in the process and went in a totally different direction. And the product was exciting when it got out. On the other end of it was probably the funnest or most rewarding project I worked on a small project was there was the peregrine falcon program where they were reintroducing endangered species, in which peregrine falcon was, into Ontario, and a biologist friend in Thunder Bay approached me. They would rappel down cliffs to the nest of the peregrine falcons and take out the chicks once they got to a certain age, bring them up, and put a band on them and see how healthy they were by taking one little feather out, and then go back down. And through this whole process, you're rappelling and climbing on some pretty severe rock faces, and you had to lower. You wanted the safety of the birds to be the first thing. And so we designed a box that you could quickly open up, put the chick in, and close while you're rappelling or sitting there. And it was safe for the chicks to get hauled up quickly and then do all the work and then put them back in the box and get it back down to the nest as quickly as possible. To make it was intrusive, but at the same time, it was safe. The safety of the chicks and the health of the chicks were improved, and the peregrine falcon program was phenomenally successful. They're still on the endangered list, I believe, but there's many hundreds of them across the province now. And for me, the reward from that was getting invited out by Brian Ratcliffe, the person who was the biologist who was doing it, and Rod Swatton, who was one of the climbers, and I got to hold one of those chicks and do some of that, and that was special. Just seeing your product in use is fun, but seeing the end result of holding a little chick like that was really neat. So yeah, uh, biggest project I ever worked on was a Canadian military. If you look at any Canadian soldier with a large rucksack or a small, what they call the small pack system, I was the lead designer on that for that project, and that was huge. I think 80,000 of those were eventually produced for our soldiers, and they got a custom fit pack to carry, whether they're doing peacekeeping or any of their many services to go into the field with. And that was kind of exciting because I worked with Queen's University. They developed a robotic simulator that you could put a pack on, and it had sensor pads underneath it, and there was a skin-like fabric, and it actually moved, imitated a person's movement, upper torso, and we could read where the pressure points were, where we needed to change things. And silly on their part, they said, "We'll give you $10,000 to buy packs so we can create a database." And I got to go out and buy all my competitors and test it like crazy. And we created a database of what was good and what was bad, and so that when we designed and put it on the simulator, we knew, okay, that was good, or that really wasn't good, from shapes, curvatures, and different materials, and able to test stress points and everything. And then we take it to the humans, the soldiers, men and women, and test it on them to make sure we were right. But it simplified the process, and I think made it a lot more science orientated, that we could measure all kinds of things that we never had access to before. And I learned a lot in that, working with science and the really high end education or research background that Queens had, that brought to it, was exceptional. That's why I got into internal frame hiking packs and all that. I had a lot of information that no one else in the industry really had, from a certain point of view. So, yeah.
I'm a total geek. That would be so cool to check all that, to see, have access to all that data and go, okay, this is a wear point. Well, look, if you round this a little bit, it takes a bit of strain off of that, whatever, right? Like that would be
Well,
insane.
yeah, and that's exactly it. Some of it wasn't rocket science, but it was like, oh, we if we put this hard layer over this soft layer, we just eliminated the pressure point. Wow, that's really cool. That's easy to do, and all kinds of things led to improvements, and it was very exciting. I enjoyed that, working with everyone, the military side and the civilian side as well. Yeah.
Well, the military boys, they're tough. They can just just suck it up. Just keep going. You're fine.
Well, you know what though, you're right, but and they are tough. But some of the gear they had was archaic, dated back to the Korean War. And our Canadian soldiers now, through a program called Clothe the Soldier, anything a soldier wore, have some really nice kit, some really nice gear that makes their jobs easier, and it fits them. It wasn't just, here's a pack. Uh, Here's a pack with 5 shoulder strap sizes and 5 hip belt sizes, and it comes in the torso size that you measure out to. And so when you're carrying some really really heavy loads, maybe you're in Winnipeg carrying sandbags. Maybe, so our soldiers have done so many things all over the world. At least you have some good gear, and that helps a lot. Yeah.
Cool. Uh, just some we've talked a lot about packs. I know that there are a couple other things off the top of my head. You have barrel harnesses. There's I would like to spend a minute talking about tump lines, because I don't think
Okay.
anybody does tump lines anymore. You do, and I think that's an amazing thing. Like I keep thinking that makes so much sense to me. Um, and then maybe we'll have a minute to talk. You've got, don't you? Yeah, you've got a like a pack kitchen, right? Like a camping kitchen.
Mason camp table, yeah,
All
with
right,
Paul
cool.
Mason,
So
yeah.
one, two,
Oh,
three.
sure. Well, you've hit a nerve here, because tump lines are my pet peeve. Growing up, I climbed a lot. Rock climbed until probably 30, 40 years old, and one of my heroes was the founder of Patagonia, and he used a tump line when he was climbing, and it was amazing. So we're coming out with a new tump line that I actually redesigned. How do you redesign a tump line? And I'm really excited about it, because I wear a tump line primarily on my forehead. Many people, though, wear it across the top of their head, and I've just redesigned it that it'll do both. And so if you like it one way, and it creates more surface area to spread it out, and a little bit of design in an old product can really improve it. And there are other manufacturers that make tump lines. I'm not the only one, but I'm probably the only one that spends so much time on them. It drives Ann crazy. Like, you realize this is a $10 item, that kind of thing. Um, and the Mason camp table we used to make, when we prior to shutting down 2013. and it never sold very well, and it still isn't selling really well. But it weighed about 7.5 pounds then, and we used it on trips. In fact, with Kevin Callan, we used it a couple times, and Kevin turned it into a bar instead of what it was originally made for. And a friend, Andy, was on the trip too,
Yep.
and it functioned very well. I can't complain.
As a bar,
Yeah, as a bar, but its intent is to prepare food or serve food, and other things. And when we Paul Mason approached me and said, "Hey, you should bring this back. What do you think?" And I said, "Well, it didn't really sell. I think it needs to be a lot lighter, and it's not something everyone's going to bring into the backcountry. It still isn't. But we went from 7.5 pounds to about 3 pounds, and made it a lot more. It's still bulky because it has to be a table, but it fits on a tree, and you use a tree to set up a workstation for doing all kinds of food prep stuff. And I think it's got some cross marketing, which I have never explored. During COVID, if you walked into a park, you saw people working on laptops, or you saw them outdoors trying to get their outdoor time. And I think if I could set up my computer on a tree in a beautiful park and bring a stool and sit down there, it would be kind of cool. Um, so it's out there now, and people can get it. I'll tell you, working with Paul Mason, wow. Paul, we Ann and I were lucky enough to we took lessons from Paul, private lessons from Paul, and when we were solo boaters, and we're nowhere in the ballpark of Paul as a paddler. But we spent 4 days paddling with him in the Ottawa area and learned a ton. So that was the start of getting to know Paul, and designing with Paul is an intense experience. Paul throws himself into it, and sometimes during a day he might do two prototypes. And Paul is a cardboard, stapler, duct tape kind of guy, or a wood, metal, and practical kind of guy, and he'll throw prototypes together. What it was, though, was throwing ideas onto the table. And no pun intended there. And working, we in probably 2 3 weeks, we probably went through at least 20 different ideas or prototypes. And I would say none of them had something that we didn't take that isn't in the final version.
cool.
And just fun to work with. And we have another new product, which I'll share with you because you'll be the first to know it. It's called the Sous Chef Kitchen. And Paul does a lot of river trips, and he uses his canoe as a table. The problem is when you prop it all up and get it stable, nothing stays very well on a canoe. If a wind comes, it takes everything that's on it off it. So we've come up with a set of straps that allow you to use your paddles as guides on both sides of the canoe, and everything in between then is not going to fall off the table anywhere near as quickly. And it comes in a little bag and is real easy to use, and is lightweight. And in the boreal forest where I am, we're not on river shores, and very rarely do we bring our canoe up to the campsite. So there's some places it's going to be used more than others, but there's a lot of my friends excited about it. And they said, "Oh, we always
Yeah.
use our canoe," and
Well,
yeah,
just the picture that
so.
it comes up in my head makes me go like, "Oh, that's brilliant. Yes, that works out well."
Well, the last canoe trip I was on, I didn't bring it, and then the guy I was canoeing with, there's three of us. He pulled the canoe up and turned it upside down so he could clean fish on it. And I hadn't even thought of that. So yeah, so you've got the inside scoop on a new product that we're introducing this spring, with Paul Mason. Yeah, and I'm excited about it.
Yeah, that
And
sounds
we'll be
cool.
making we the camp kitchen, the Mason camp table, and this I make myself. So I make them in Thunder Bay. They're not made like our packs are made offshore now,
Right.
to pretty stringent conditions. But at the same time, we don't make them ourselves anymore, unfortunately. Yeah.
Cool. Tell me about your barrel packs. A bit of context. I don't. We have the big rubber bags like a mech slog or whatever,
Yeah.
and I use a 5 gallon Home Depot orange bucket with a spin
Yeah,
on lid. It's usually our eldest and I that go out, so it's enough to do 8 days,
yeah.
depending on whether he's in a growth spurt. Um, but that's my barrel pack with a bunch of stuff around it. I'm envious, and we're about to start doing larger party trips. So I keep thinking, I'm going to have to get into the actual blue barrel and a blue barrel pack. What's the what's the beauty of having those packs?
Yeah, so I think there's pros and cons, but the pros are you have an entirely waterproof barrel, plastic barrel that fits into a harness. The cons of the barrel would be the shape of the barrel. It's round, and at the bottom of the barrel and the top of the barrel, it goes opposite ways to the body. And having something round up against your back is really uncomfortable. So there's a lot of harnesses out there that are very uncomfortable, and they don't need to be. We make a harness called the Voyager harness, and certainly other manufacturers take the shape of the barrel out of the equation for fitting. So that's the critical part if you're looking at a barrel harness. But I think barrels are so easy to use. We for years have been using them. We've never, even though we've tripped in remote places, and we've never had a bear problem, but we're very conscious of it. We don't hang our food packs. The barrels we feel are, they're not bear proof, but if you can eliminate or reduce the smell of people around barrels, you can eliminate them as an attraction or a magnet for bears or other animals. So we have a Ziploc bag. We put a little rag in, and we put first aid antiseptic in it. It's damp. And the last thing that touches our barrel is that rag. We wipe the metal ring, we wipe the plastic down, and number one, it erases a lot of our oils and touching. It doesn't eliminate it because the harness is going to have some of you on it. But I'm a firm believer that it helps. And barrels are easy to use that way. Probably the cons would be you've got a relatively heavy piece of plastic that you're stuck with on the whole trip. So if you have a long trip, 2 weeks, and you have 3 or 4 barrels or 2 or 3 barrels, uh, where opposed to say a soft pack or of some kind or smaller containers, you can't collapse them down and roll them up and put them in the bottom of a pack. On the other hand, if you tip, they float, so that's a good thing. Yeah, so our Voyager harness is integral part of it is taking the shape of the barrel out of the equation, and then the custom fit, the different size hip belts and different size shoulder straps. And we have a feature on our pack that uses the entire length of the barrel. A barrel's approximately 20. The large barrel is 60-liter barrel is about 24 inches tall, and in the pack world, that would mean it's a medium frame size. Our canoe packs, and so you only are going to fit a certain number of people because of that. But I figured out a way of using the entire length of the barrel, and that's unique to the industry as well. So it just fits you better, and it fits more people better. But it won't fit really, really tall people or people with really long torsos as well as it would the vast majority of people. So yeah, and I think they have their place in the canoeing field. We don't always take it, but I would say the vast majority of the times we do have a barrel.
Well, yeah, and most of the community, whether it's from habit or because of experience, or I don't know, but most of the community does take them. I just we tripped onto the whole 5 gallon pail thing. It works well for me and our eldest. I'm not messing with it, except we are about to sort of embark on not just he and I tripping. We're looking at bigger groups of people, and
Yeah,
it's
yeah.
okay. We're getting into
Well,
it.
I used to trip with olive barrels. I don't know whether you ever saw or heard those, the olives from
I have
Greece and
heard
other
about it.
countries.
Yeah,
Yeah, and I to date myself, I had square olive barrels, which three of them would fit down the back of your canoe pack really well because you had a flat surface instead of three round surfaces.
rounded ones. Yep.
Um, and 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 I still think people have forgotten about olive barrels. One place where I think they're phenomenal is a kid's pack. You give a kid basically a 20-liter barrel with a 6-inch opening to stuff his sleeping bag and maybe his teddy bear and a few other things that are him. That's his task, and it's still light, and yet he can drop it in puddle. He can drop it in the river, and it's going to be waterproof. So, but your idea of 5 gallon, you're using like the gamma lid. Is that what that
I
fits on it and allows you to
that
take it
sounds
on and
right. It's the
off?
spinny lid. Yeah,
Yeah,
yeah.
yeah, and that's an amazing gadget in its own. It's been around, and it had, you could use. We used to make a pack board, and probably I've got an adaptation for the Voyager harness where you can put them horizontally. You could put 2 or 3 of those 5 gallon onto a pack frame or a harness that can hold those, and still have, not have to use a blue barrel. It would be cheaper, that's for sure. The price of blue barrels has gone through the roof,
It has.
and you would still have kind of 3 different barrels to divide up different foods and label them well. And yeah, so there's I'm not stuck on blue barrels or the barrels that are out there. In fact, I'm less likely. If I was buying them, I would be less likely to buy them because of the pricing that's hit them, unfortunately. Yeah, you've come
All
up
right.
with an
Well,
alternative that's cheaper.
I will follow up on that 5 gallons in a pack thing. That might work better for me. Cool.
So just I would be interested if you could walk us through the process if somebody decides, okay, I would like an Ostrom custom pack. Like, do I
Yep.
do I take my own measurements and email that to you? And then how long does it take to get my pack? That kind of thing. I'd be interested to know.
Okay, so yeah, so the packs are all in stock, and it's taking a generic pack and putting the proper size shoulder straps, a proper size hip belt, and if it's a pack that has an adjustable torso, putting it together with the right torso size. So it's real easy to do, and on our website, which you would go to, it has fitting charts and how to measure for your chest area for your shoulder straps and how to measure your torso length, and the same with the hip belt. And we give you our phone number, we give you our email address. We have fitting instructions on how to go through all that. And I would guess that maybe 5% of the people just call us up and we walk it through, or they hit a point where they're not understanding something, and we're still working all that out. But most of the time, 95% of the time, you can do it yourself. And if you can't, we're there to help you. So you're going and saying, okay, when I measure with a tape around my chest area, and we tell you where, you'll get a measurement, and you go to a chart, and it tells you what size shoulder straps you're going to have. And then the same thing with torso, and the same thing with sometimes the torso length. Well, sometimes for all the measurements, it helps to have a partner to help you, unless you're really flexible. So yeah, and then we will outfit the pack according to those measurements, and we're finding that most of the time we're bang on. There's the odd time that something has changed, either someone lost some weight or gained some weight or whatever, and there's a lot of flexibility in the sizing. And if it's wrong, we just mail you the correct modular pieces, and you mail it back, and there's no charge for if you get it wrong. We eat that and make sure you're not paying extra because you're getting something custom, and it gives you a pack then that fits a lot more comfortably. You're going to be a happier camper or a happier portager. Yeah. Did that answer all of that, or was there something
And
I
what's
didn't cover?
what's the like a time length from the time I say okay
Oh yeah, time
my
length. Well,
measurement?
well, it's if you were to order today, you'd have your pack in 2 weeks, and that would in wintertime it's a little, well, even in summertime we're busier, but in wintertime it it it's dependent on when my employee is in. She's in 2 or 3 times a week, so yeah. So it's not long because we're
Oh,
not making the packs. The packs are already there. All the shoulder straps, we carry a whole pile of extra shoulder straps in small, medium, large, extra large, and the same in hip belts. And the torso thing is, it's not available in all our packs. So the Winisk and the Wabakimi have the ability to adjust the torso length. The Quetico comes with just a fixed torso, but you still have shoulder strap sizes and hip belt sizes. And the same thing with the Voyageur, although there is one adjustment that allows you to kind of fit taller people. So yeah, so it doesn't take extra time. It's the same amount of time as ordering any canoe pack on the market. We get it out the door in equivalent time. It's just that there's a little bit extra work on our end to assemble it for your measurements.
Spectacular. Honey, Christmas. I got a birthday coming up. I got a birthday coming. Just
Thanks
That's
very
it for us.
much to both of you.
That's it for us for today. Thank you so much to Bill Ostrom from Ostrom Outdoors for joining us, and that was awesome information.
it was
You
amazing.
can check him out at ostromoutdoors.ca on Facebook, Instagram, and LinkedIn. And you can check us out on all of those things. We are on Facebook, Twitter, Instagram. We have a YouTube channel. We would love it if you subscribed. And we will talk to you again soon. Bye.
Bye.